fail. Here's another question.
Thank you. You're speaking a lot about Google technologies and the smart values in the near future in the cities. It's very interesting for me. What is your thought about artificial intelligence in the next maybe couple, 5 years or maybe 10 years? Do you include thoughts and inspiration and imagination of artificial intelligence in planning urbanism?
Do you have an example of where you, I mean, because artificial intelligence for me not immediately obvious?
Yes, I mean, for example, deep machine learning, like Google has a big development on robotics and artificial intelligence, like deep machine learning, self-learning machines. That is very interesting to know where we're going to in the near future.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting question. We have seen the robotizing of our muscles many years ago, and now we see the robotizing of our brains if you talk about artificial intelligence. And the real question is, there is a lot of work now which perhaps is redundant when we use artificial intelligence, and it should lead to the discussion, do we work the entire week, or are there only a few days for us in which we can be productive to keep our economy up and running? And that discussion is now very, how do you say, filled with a political, in an ideological political way. But it would be if we could open that discussion and have an open discussion on how we relate to that question, I think it would be very interesting to see what it means to be productive, and if we are not really working for our money because we have an artificial intelligence, what does it mean what does it do with our lives? What kind of cities we need then? What does it do with the public space if we don't work the entire day or sit in an office or whatever you do, because it makes the way we move, the freedom we will have to do the things we want to do is much different when you don't have to work 40 hours a week or whatever. And that's the discussion is, well, I'm not sure if it's already started, but we're at the beginning of that discussion.
But if you square that with social inequality, if you think that there is less work, but that means that less people have employment, then I think it needs the brains of the government to anticipate that almost.
Yeah.
Is it on your agenda?
It's not really on my agenda when we talk about the next years and making strategies on the big issues that come to us, but I think it should be. But it's a very, very difficult discussion because, well, you have a discussion that was many years ago, kind of utopia thought that we don't have to work anymore and robots would do the productive things and we could have a good life. That's a kind of beautiful idea we want to have, and before you know it, you have that kind of discussion, and a lot of people would say, well, that's not realistic. But so it's difficult to get the real discussion and the real realistic way of thinking about the questions you just said.
You're going to write an essay on the next economy format.
Yeah.
Is this a topic that you trust yourself going into in that direction?
I have to now, yeah, because
you have to now. You got an assignment, mate.
I never think about this, never. But maybe I should. So in that sense, it's a very good question. The only thing I have as an answer is that whatever technology comes to our society, that you can see in history or you can see it nowadays, it's always adding layers. That we stay human beings that breathe, that have social feelings. There are things, let's call it ecology, that nature, that goes on. So everything we develop is a layer adding it. And I really don't know what artificial intelligence is going to do with the whole, but I know it's another layer. It's not going to change the whole world. And the question is, what's going to affect? It's good starting to think about that.
Important question. So thank you very much for the question. Is there another question? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about the social equality and how to avoid segregation in the cities. You both said that is really important for you, but I read in articles that in Amsterdam the situation, for example, for students is already horrible. And so how are you going to change that? Because I know in my town, Zurich, it's the same. So what would you do to change that? Because obviously it's pretty important for you.
Well, one of the things we have to talk about is the financial arrangements to make sure the city will be diverse and included. And that's immediately the most difficult discussion, talking about money, because money kills the discussion. We have a tradition in the last years in which a lot of the policymakers and a lot of the politicians say we don't have money, which I think is at least a bit strange. I think we're very rich, we have a lot of money. Money is never a problem. Money solves problems. It isn't a problem, but we talk always about money as if it is a problem. We don't have enough, so we have a problem. No, money solves problems. So I would rather first talk about what are the main issues. How can we solve those issues? And then talk about in what way money solves the problem. But we need financial arrangements to make sure that the city includes everyone. Because if you don't do that, then the market money, so you will make the decisions, and that will lead to cities which are too expensive and will exclude people who are not that rich or poor or have a normal kind of income.
Okay, and how about you?
Yeah, it's also a matter of accepting things as they are. Because a lot of, last Monday I was in a discussion and I'm not that easy angry, but this guy really made me mad because he said about a neighborhood in Rotterdam, he said, yeah, this is an inner city neighborhood, but it doesn't feel inner city because the wrong people live here. And I said, who are you judging that these people who don't have money and are maybe mainly from Moroccan or Turkish background are the wrong people living here? And the only thing is that that's influential in the city who decides things, and as long as people in cities decide that people who drink cappuccino and have laptops are the wanted people and the other ones are the wrong people, then there's enough to do in just telling that the city is only a successful city if all these kind of people can live together. And I think we should help the so-called wrong people in giving them perspectives, not to export them to the suburbs, what's actually happening in the Netherlands, in some cities, but helping them to develop in the neighborhoods. And that's something that is not really common sense yet. So I think we should start there. And the second thing is the students. And there's only one solution, building, building, building. There are too many coming to Amsterdam. So or the university has to be of a lower quality. But the other thing is that the city is very attractive. So a lot of people want to study in Amsterdam, not because of the university, but because of the city. And yeah, then the only solution is to build a lot of houses. And that's happening at the moment, but yeah, it takes some time.
Okay. Finally, final question for you guys. We're now here at the Biennial, and you both have had a chance to see a bit of it at least. What are your takeaways? I mean, it's quite an effort to get this staged, but the hope is, of course, that it does something also for policy making and politics. Can you give me an idea what you think is helping you in your work, or where you could improve even on helping you in doing your work? Hans?
Well, there are a lot of examples, but let's take one that's in the back, Buiksloterham. I don't know if you've seen it, Amsterdam. It's a very interesting project. It started because of the crisis. Now the city is growing again, or there are a lot of people coming to the city. So the mechanisms to produce houses, the financial mechanism to push smaller initiatives out are very, very big. And you see immediately in the discussions I had with the people who did the development of the Buiksloterham, that the government takes a new kind of position because they don't need the small initiative anymore. They immediately shift to the old tradition in which you do big business with project developers or whatever to build as much houses as possible. So for me, it's very, very important to see what kind of government do you need to keep those small initiatives alive and kicking, because I think they're absolutely necessary to address some of the big issues, but also to keep the cities alive and kicking with all kinds of people and all kinds of initiatives.
So to preserve what we call do-it-yourself or pop-up in an age in which the project developer has a business case in it, because it brings different, it also brought new creativity, and that's very evident.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought when the crisis happens, and I thought it's the end of the project development. Perhaps it is. I'm still not sure if it will get back in the way it was. But it's not a natural flow that those small initiatives and the pop-up initiatives will be alive and kicking in the next 10 years. So we really have to rethink and think about what can we do to make sure that it's an important part of the development of the cities.
And that's also something that's a national policy thing. You think you can do something there?
I think it should be in shaping the conditions on how we address the growth of the cities, because one of the issues you see, well, it's the same in Holland as I think in a lot of places, there is a movement from the countryside to the cities, and there's a demographic movement, and if you translate that in the need for housing, we have to build, let's say, 1 million houses in the cities. Now, it's not only building new houses, it's also retransforming the city itself and retransforming the shape, the public space in the city, to use it more and more and to get those houses in. But it immediately brings up the question, how do we do that? What kind of mechanism we bring in to really build those amounts of houses?
Yeah. It's incredible if you think about 1 million houses. The Netherlands has 70 million inhabitants. 1 million houses, that requires a complete overhaul of the cities even.
Yeah, you can see it on the demographic movements that it's necessary.
Yeah.
And it brings another question. It's not only growth. It's replacing a question, because there are perhaps a lot of houses empty in the countryside, which has which a new social question on that part of the country.
Wouter, you've also been able to wander around quite a bit. I've seen you several times at least. What is your takeaway from the biennial as it stands out here?
It's not a table, but I think the general idea that I think maybe your idea, that we should move from thinking in an extractive economy to an inclusive economy. I think that, for me, at least, it was one of the biggest eye-openers. There are a lot of examples over here, but that thinking about that the economy more and more collects all the money in just a few spots in the world that control our lives completely, and that we find new ways how we can develop an economy that's more local, grounded. I think that's was for me the biggest lesson for this biennial. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for this conversation. Thank you for your attention, your questions, and hope you enjoy this wonderful day for the remaining hours. So thank you very much.